The most powerful man in basketball just walked into a room he was never supposed to enter. And when Adam Silver speaks, leagues listen, players tremble, and entire franchises hold their breath. But this time is different because Adam Silver isn't just offering advice. He isn't just making suggestions. According to Front Office Sports, the NBA commissioner has officially declared he will do whatever is necessary to intervene in the WNBA's collective bargaining negotiations. Let that sink in for a second. The man who oversees a $10 billion empire, the same commissioner who navigated gambling scandals, CO bubbles, and international expansion, is now stepping directly into what might be the messiest labor dispute in women's sports history. And here's the thing nobody is talking about. This isn't salvation. This might be a warning shot. Because when Adam Silver gets involved in something, it's never casual. It's never a friendly suggestion over coffee. The man operates with surgical precision. And right now, the WNBA is on his operating table. Let's rewind to understand how we got here because this story is crazier than anything Hollywood could write. For over a year, the WNBA Players Association and team owners have been locked in negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement. And I'm not talking about polite disagreements over contract language. I'm talking about fundamental explosive conflicts over the future of the entire league. The players want more money, obviously, but more importantly, they want a piece of the revenue pie. They've watched the league's popularity explode, largely thanks to Caitlin Clark's arrival and the Iowa effect, and they're saying, we built this. We deserve our share. Fair enough, right? But here's where things get complicated. The owners are pushing back hard. And their argument isn't unreasonable either. The WNBA, for all its recent success, has operated at a loss for nearly 3 decades. 30 years of Red Incorporated, 30 years of the NBA essentially subsidizing women's professional basketball because they believed in the vision. So when players come to the table demanding 50% revenue sharing and $1 million base salaries, ownership is looking at the books and saying, what revenue? We're still digging out of a hole. And the numbers back this up. According to verified reports from Front Office Sports, the league's latest proposal offered a $1 million base salary for top players. That's historic. That would make WNBA athletes among the highest paid women's team sport athletes in the world. The salary cap would jump from $1.5 million to $5 million per team, bringing average salaries to approximately $417,000. On paper, that sounds like progress, but the players said no. Why? Because the revenue-sharing model wasn't what they wanted. Under the league's proposal, players would receive 50% of a calculated revenue metric, but that metric wouldn't include all revenue. Certain expenses would be deducted first. When you do the math, players would actually receive less than 15% of the league's total revenue. And that's when things went from tense to explosive. Breanna Stewart, 2-time WNBA Finals MVP, Olympic gold medalist, and vice president of the WNBPA Executive Committee, stepped to the microphone and didn't hold back. More often than not, we're the ones willing to compromise, Stewart said in verified statements to media. And there still isn't movement. Read that again. The face of the New York Liberty. A player who just helped deliver a championship to Madison Square Garden. A woman who could be playing anywhere in the world for massive overseas contracts. She's standing in front of cameras saying the league won't budge. That's not frustration. That's a declaration. But here's the twist that changes everything. Adam Silver watched this unfold. He watched the deadline get extended once, then twice. He watched both sides dig their heels in deeper with every passing week. And somewhere in a Manhattan high-rise, the most powerful man in basketball made a decision. His stepping in. And when Adam Silver steps in, things are about to change dramatically for better or worse. The question is, who's about to feel the heat? Now, here's where Adam Silver's words become a loaded weapon. Speaking ahead of the Knicks' NBA Cup victory over the Spurs, Silver addressed the WNBA situation directly and every single syllable was calculated. We're available to do whatever is necessary to help get a deal done. Silver stated, I'm encouraged by the fact they extended the deadline once again. Presumably, the sides wouldn't have been willing to do that unless they thought there was a constructive path to getting a deal done. Sounds diplomatic, right? Sounds like a peacemaker trying to calm troubled waters. But let me translate that from commissioner speak to reality. Adam Silver just told both sides, players and owners, that if they can't figure this out like adults, daddy is coming home. And when daddy comes home, somebody's getting grounded. See, what most people don't understand about Adam Silver is his track record. This is the same man who banned Donald Sterling for life within days of a scandal breaking. The same commissioner who restructured the entire NBA during a global pandemic. The same executive who's currently navigating gambling investigations and potential European expansion simultaneously. When Adam Silver says he'll do whatever is necessary, that's not an offer of help. That's a threat wrapped in a handshake. And both sides know it. But here's the part that should terrify WNBA players. Adam Silver's primary obligation isn't to the WNBA. His primary obligation is to the NBA. The WNBA exists in many ways because the NBA allows it to exist. The NBA has provided financial backing, infrastructure, broadcast partnerships, and credibility for nearly 3 decades. So, when negotiations threaten to blow up the entire league, Adam Silver isn't thinking about player empowerment or revenue fairness. He's thinking about protecting his investment. And right now, that investment is bleeding. Let's talk numbers. Real verified numbers that paint a picture nobody wants to see. The WNBA's average attendance in 2024 jumped significantly, largely driven by the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Indiana Fever games became the hottest ticket in women's sports. Television ratings spiked. Merchandise sales exploded. Social media engagement went through the roof. By all visible metrics, the WNBA is thriving. But here's the uncomfortable truth buried beneath the hype. Increased popularity doesn't automatically equal profitability. Television deals take time to renegotiate. Sponsorship contracts are locked in for years. Arena deals have fixed terms. The revenue surge everyone is celebrating, most of it won't materialize into actual dollars for ownership groups until future contract cycles. Meanwhile, player salaries have to be paid now. Training facilities have to be maintained now. Travel costs are due now. Charter flights, which players rightfully demanded and received, cost money now. So when Breanna Stewart and the WNBPA say they want 50% of revenue, ownership isn't being greedy by pushing back. They're looking at balance sheets that still show red ink and wondering how to make promises they might not be able to keep. But here's the counter-argument that makes this whole situation so explosive. The players aren't stupid. They have agents. They have financial advisors. They have union leadership that understands business. And they're looking at something ownership doesn't want to talk about: future value. The WNBA's next media rights deal is projected to be worth exponentially more than the current agreement. We're talking about a potential leap from $60 million annually to potentially $200 million or more. According to industry analysts, sponsorship deals are lining up. Expansion franchises are selling for $50 million each, up from essentially nothing just a few years ago. The players see the writing on the wall. They know the league is about to explode financially, and they're saying, "We want our share locked in now before you try to lowball us later." It's a chess match. And both sides think they're 3 moves ahead. But what neither side anticipated was the third player entering the game. Adam Silver isn't here to negotiate. He's here to dictate. And according to sources familiar with the situation, his patience is running dangerously thin. The January 9th deadline was the second extension granted. Both sides agreed to keep talking, which Silver publicly praised as a sign of progress, but behind closed doors, the mood was reportedly far less optimistic. Players told Front Office Sports directly that they don't believe a deal will get done. Think about that. The people at the negotiating table, the actual players fighting for their financial futures, are telling reporters they don't think it's going to work. That's not pessimism. That's a 5-alarm fire. And if negotiations collapse entirely, if the players vote to strike, if ownership decides to lock them out, the consequences would be catastrophic. But there's one factor nobody is discussing openly. One element that could change everything, and it has a name: Caitlin Clark. 2 words that changed the entire financial trajectory of women's basketball. 2 words that have ownership groups salivating and veteran players wrestling with complicated emotions. 2 words that might ultimately decide whether the CBA negotiation ends in celebration or catastrophe. Because here's the reality. Nobody in that negotiating room wants to admit out loud. The WNBA's sudden surge in value. The television ratings that shocked executives. The sold-out arenas that hadn't seen crowds like this in decades. The merchandise flying off shelves faster than they can stock it. One player did that. Not the collective. Not the league's marketing department. Not some brilliant strategic initiative from ownership. One 22-year-old from Iowa walked into the WNBA and single-handedly forced America to pay attention. And that creates the most awkward negotiating position imaginable. The WNBPA is fighting for collective revenue sharing. They're arguing correctly that all players contribute to the league's success. That veterans laid the foundation. That stars like Breanna Stewart, Y.A. Wilson, and Nafisa Collier carried this league through lean years when nobody was watching. That's all true, but the numbers tell a different story. When Caitlin Clark plays, ratings spike. When she doesn't, they drop. Indiana Fever home games went from afterthoughts to appointment television. Road games became events because fans wanted to see her, not necessarily the home team. According to ESPN viewership data, games featuring Caitlin Clark averaged over 1.5 million viewers during her rookie season. Games without her significantly lower. The gap wasn't subtle. It was a canyon. So, when veteran players sit at the negotiating table demanding 50% of revenue, ownership has a devastating counter-argument they're too polite to say publicly. What revenue without her? What revenue are we even talking about? It's brutal. It's uncomfortable. And it's the elephant in every single room where these negotiations take place.